you have been at the forefront of this play, this intermingling between psychotherapy and yoga, of East and West, of Eastern Enlightenment and Western Enlightenment. And you've spent half a century with this integration between East and West, yoga meditation with psychotherapy. Um, that's a long time, half a century.
Yeah.
Um, so it must be incredibly important to you. Um, can you say more about that? Like, what is important about it to you? Why should we care about the East or the West, psychotherapy or yoga meditation? Um, and why should we care about the integration between the two?
Well, for me, it's kind of an evolution, the interest in I'll talk about all these three areas. Um, from a teenager, I was kind of interested in, what is this? Why are we here? Why do we exist? What most people, I think, don't. They sort of just, they're just here and they're living according to what they've learned how to be and what the value and belief systems, and they don't really ask the question of why do we even exist? Why is any of this um, how we find ourselves? And I was always interested in that. And I was first started studying philosophy as a teenager and history of philosophy, and then um, I got interested in what makes people tick and psychology, and trying to explore this question of I grew up in a world of chaos. My family, the world I was in, there was a lot of emotionality, a lot of disturbance. I grew up in the city, where a big city, and it wasn't a pleasant place to be. And I tried to understand that. Why is life full of this emotional chaos and disturbances and suffering? And so that led me in college to, after I was interested in psychology, to study, to participate in meditation. I just kind of came upon it, and by sitting quietly and going inward, it was such a strange and unique experience. I found a certain kind of peacefulness, a certain kind of centeredness, where the chaos of the world didn't matter so much. So that intrigued me. And then I studied world religions and found that in Eastern religions, there's a notion of a self, at least in the Hindu and Indian philosophy, of a self that's beyond this worldly identity that we have, the physical person we are, that's going to be born and die and go through the various experiences. But there's a self that's beyond time, beyond birth and death, and that we are that self. And so that was very intriguing to me, to, and the writings of the mystics, that there's something beyond this worldly level of consciousness that's that has a different quality, that has that has the quality of contentment and joy and happiness. And so those are concepts, very intriguing concepts. And so I was drawn toward meditation and toward Western psychology. And then while I was in graduate school, I had a chance to take LSD when it was still legal, and had a firsthand experience of what was being taught in these Eastern traditions. And it was a life-changing experience, as it is for many people who have explored psychedelics. And instead of having beliefs about what's real and what's not real, and living according to beliefs that have been passed down, it was a direct experience of a sense of oneness, a seeing deeper, seeing, like having a telescope or a microscope to see more deeply into what exists. So these three avenues became ways for me to explore the depth of our being. Psychology and Western psychology helped me to understand what's beyond our rational mind, the unconscious. And Jung's psychology talked about a collective unconscious, a consciousness that we all share, but is usually not in our awareness. And having had psychedelic experiences that led me to a direct experience of a oneness of consciousness, but are very temporary. It's a wonderful experience for 6-8 hours, but then we come back. We may have learned something, and we may remember something of that, but we're not living in that transcendent state. So that led me to want to find a teacher, because I thought through meditation, through spiritual training and understanding, I might be able to maintain that state of consciousness through meditation, through yogic practices, through spiritual practices. And so that led me into more of a more profound study of Eastern traditions. And what I'm finding is that these three avenues actually complement one another. Each one is incomplete in certain ways. And for example, while meditation, after many, many, many years of study, and if one believes in reincarnation, maybe many lifetimes, may lead one to an awakening to this oneness of consciousness, to this consciousness that transcends our individual personality. A person may have glimpses in meditation also, but they're also temporary until much further along in the process. So psychedelics are helpful, and I've stayed interested in that because they lead to that direct awareness with fairly immediately, very profound experiences. So I continue to explore that, and so I feel it's helpful to be able to have that recognition, to have that direct awareness. And then the question is, coming back into our ordinary consciousness, how do we maintain that? And so meditation has been a key for that. And I would say proper meditation. There are many forms of meditation that don't lead that deeply. So those two, to me, go hand in hand. And then if we go back and study the meditative traditions of the East, most of them, not only the East, but even in Christianity and Western traditions, most of historically, the idea of doing these practices was that life is full of suffering and difficulties and problems, and if we can go deeply into this transcendent state of consciousness, we awaken out of the physical realm, out of the body, into this transcendent state. But there's not much attention paid to the person and the personality and the sort of contractions that each person has, and the ways that they're not really open and at ease and fully present here in this life. So there's not a lot of practical aspect. It's the idea is to do these practices and reach a transcendent state. But what Western psychology brings to the equation and to these three working together is that in the early 20th century, with Freud and the people, Jung and the other people that were working with him, and other explorers unrelated to psychoanalysis, there was a recognition of the unconscious, of that we're not just rational beings. Until that time, the view in Western society or culture was that we do things in a rational way. And then here's this discovery of how irrational we are in so many ways. But the way that was approached initially was more the approach of analysis, trying to understand, the Oedipal complex or the what drives a person, what motivates, and then the therapies were also focused on analyzing and trying to understand, with the idea somehow that would help a person get beyond their imbalances. And I think for the most part, I maybe be biased in saying it, but that kind of analysis has been inadequate.
Mm-hmm.
And so as therapy has evolved, and as it's related to spiritual understandings, it's become a different view. I would say all of these views, meditation and psychoanalysis and therapy, are about uncovering what's going on underneath what seems apparently to be going on. So meditation is uncovering a sense of peace and contentment and being in the moment. And psychedelics are uncovering this sense of oneness. And psychotherapies are interested in uncovering, but the early ones were more uncovering and understanding about who we are and how we function and all, but didn't need necessarily to change. And now spiritually oriented therapies, or therapies that are focused on being in the present, or more experiential therapies is another name for that, are about uncovering the obstacles that keep us from being in the present. What keeps us contracted and stuck and misunderstanding who we are, and focused on a particular something we think we need. So I believe that psychotherapy contributes to spiritual awakening, in the sense that we're learning more and more that we don't have to go out of the body and to reach this other awareness. We can be embodied consciousness. We can be embodied and live from a more profound awakening consciousness here in the body. So I think that's a move forward, maybe an evolution, historical evolution in human understanding of all that we can be in the world, rather than trying to leave the world.
Mm-hmm.